This episode of Storycomic Presents is sponsored by JanicePointPress.com. Watch out for wormholes. Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 329. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're honored to have with us the internationally celebrated award-winning children's book author and illustrator, Cyndi Marko.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Cyndi, thanks for coming on.
That's great. I mean, I guess.
And so my daughter gravitated towards and then picked up Sleuth. That is hard to say.
It's really hard.
It's easy to read, but it's hard to say out loud. Yeah. So first of all, before we kind of dive in and talk about some of your books, you want to give people a little bit of background on how you kind of got into writing children's books?
Sure. Well, I always wanted to read ever since before I went to school. Even my dad read all the time, so it was kind of like modeled for me. And I feel like I was reading before, and I don't know whether I was actually reading or just looking through books, but I remember being so excited to go to school and learn to read. And even before that, I spent all my time drawing and making up characters, I guess, just drawing characters. But I think I never realized that I could also write. It didn't occur to me that those things were related. But I was really, really interested in reading and ate up everything I could. I of course, I think picked it up really quickly. And when I was in the third grade, second and third grade, I wasn't allowed to read. Our school library had this rule that the primary kids, so grades 1 through 3, weren't allowed to read above that. They had it broken into primary and intermediate, and I had to wait. Yeah, right. But hopefully it's changed. But so there were all these books that I wanted to read that I felt I was ready for because the other ones were just too, I wanted to get into longer books and bigger books, and I was told no. You have to wait until you're in the 4th grade to be able to take these out. And I was just devastated. But my older brother, Russ, started taking me to the public library, and we would spend all day there on a Saturday, and we'd read comics, and I could take out any book I wanted. And that was a huge, huge thing for me. So I started reading, I guess, bigger and bigger books, and just a lot more variety than they had at school. And then when I was in the 5th grade, my teacher picked me to go to a young writers conference, and this was in Terrace, BC.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the first time that it occurred to me that I could be a writer, because I'd always considered myself a drawer, right, and thought I was an artist. And then when I went there, it just kind of that whole world opened up to me because I read so much. And I got to be in a workshop with Gordon Corman, who is a big Canadian guy. He's a big deal. And at the time, he was one of my favorite authors. I used to always get his books from the Scholastic Flyers. And he wrote his first book when he was 12, just amazing, right? So even then, he was probably maybe 21 or something like that. He'd already had a whole bunch of books out. And it was just, for 10-year-old me, it was pretty incredible. And ever since then, I always said I want to write and illustrate children's books. That was what I wanted to do. And I said that for years and years and years. And then at some point in my 30s, I said, you know what? I think I better stop saying it or start doing it. So I started doing it, and and now here I am, and I have written and illustrated books for kids. So
yeah. What I love about it is and you kind of even say this in here. It's silly books for serious kids. It's kind of like your little slogan on there. what I love about it is like after my daughter read the book, I read it and I was thoroughly entertained
Oh, good.
as, a 40 something year old dad, because you, what you do with that story is like and which is something that I don't see a lot with children's book authors and children's book creators, is that you presume intelligence to your reader. Like you would just assume they get everything, and so
Yeah,
you don't talk down to the kids as they're reading it, and you add in so much fun visualization that it's the rereadability of your books are immense, because you miss something in the background. And I love how you put in like side conversations that are happening that are seemingly irrelevant to the story, which makes it feel like, it really makes the reader feel like you're actually not even participating but observing something. Like, so it's like it gives you it gave me the impression that the book is going to read itself if I'm not there. So it almost is like it's not active participation, it's almost passive participation, like a TV show or something. So like, this book's going to read, so you might as well be a part of it. So because
yeah.
I love how like the reader is almost like witnessing it, like about like the irrelevance of the conversations that were happening around it.
Yeah.
So what kind of like inspired your style of how you wrote
Oh,
books?
I think I always gravitated towards humor.
Yeah.
When I was, and but also like I um really loved like science and like just anything that was an interesting fact, I think. So
Mm,
so a lot of my books will have like um little bits of science or something in them as well. Like just because I found it interesting as a kid. And
right.
but yeah, like I loved the Great Brain books when I was young. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Do you know those books?
The
They're
Great Brain Brooks. It must
yeah,
be. You know what? It's probably a Canadian thing, Cyndi. So it must be.
I don't know. No, because actually they're based. I think they're set in Utah, and
Oh, really?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, and they're I think by John D. Fitzgerald, and they're
Okay.
about his older brother who's this genius, right? Like, so he's the narrator of the book, but the books are about his brother. So it's almost like Holmes and Watson, right? But they're
Okay. Yeah.
right? And so it's basically um it never occurred to me before I just said it just now, but I think that's exactly how it's written, right? It's like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, but with these kids, and he's like going on about his brother, but like one of I think there's like five kids or something, but they're like the two
Right.
middle ones. Really fun, really like they're it's always mystery, but the his brother is very much like Sherlock Holmes in the way that he sort of like uses deduction and just observation and puts everything together. And they were fun and adventurous and just and funny, and like I said, I love Gordon Corman as a kid. His books are just hilarious, or at least the stuff he was writing. I think he's got some more that are like more adventures type stories and things like that now as well. But when I was younger, it was all like just really fun, ridiculous humor, like the Bruno and Boots books, if you're familiar with those, right?
Mm.
Um, and I love Calvin and Hobbes was one of my favorites growing up, and I used to read
Yeah.
like Asterix and
Obelix. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, lots of that kind of stuff. So just things that were funny, and I like always read the Sunday funnies.
Like how you have your pages set up as well. It just seems like you're agnostic to any specific frames. You're like, I need to have this many. Like it seems as though that there's the characters seem to come first.
Yeah,
It feels like it. Yeah.
I think so. I usually I think when I conceive of a story idea, it's usually the character that
Right.
comes first for me, and sometimes it's even the character will come out of just like a play on words or something, um,
Right.
and uh, but then everything else just sort of like builds around this character. So
Is there like Kung Pao Chicken and Sloth Sleuth? Is there gonna be, are you thinking about ever doing any like team up books or anything like that?
well, it would be really fun to put those together. They're with different publishers, so it's probably not going to happen. But I guess I could do my own like just my own little comic strips and see what happens there.
at some point after they stop printing it, though, doesn't those IPs revert back to you?
Um, well, right now, I believe like the Kung Pao Chicken, I can do what, like if I wanted to do my own comics for that and just put them up, I could. Like that's the copyright is mine. With
Right.
Sloth Sleuth, it was originally IP, which
Hmm.
means like so they approached me. They had this concept for the sloth, um,
Okay.
story the story and all of that stuff was mine. They said, here's this concept, we want to see this like detective sloth. They had the title
Okay.
Sloth Sleuth, and they said so they but it was cool because my editor Amy had been at Aladdin when I did this little piggy, and she
Okay.
so when she had this come up, she contacted my agent and said, "Oh, I remember, Cindy's," and I hadn't met her, but I had a different editor there, but she remembered the books, and so she approached me about it, and so I did up like some samples and sent them in, and she said, "This is exactly what I want," and that was it. So it's interesting. I'd never done a book that way before, so
Right.
but like I said, so like it's that one I don't have like I would need, I think, permission to do anything more with it because
Okay.
I don't actually have the copyright for it. But
And you just came out with the second part two of Sloth Sleuth, The Legend of Gnawface.
yeah. Yeah. And that one, I think personally, I think that one's even funnier than the first one. Yeah,
Okay.
the first one, I was so sick when we were working on that because it was written during COVID, and I had gotten COVID
Okay.
the week that everything locked down. I started getting sick, and then I got
Okay.
really sick for I think I was like in bed for about 6 weeks, and then I had the long COVID, and so I had like
Oh
just
wow.
headache and
Okay.
fever and stuff for a really long time. So it was really hard
Right.
getting my brain to work when we were working on the first one. I mean, I think it turned out amazing, and I love it. But I think I felt like things were easy, like it was just easier doing the second one because I wasn't sick anymore.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, I think like after you do the get one out of the way, then the format and the characters and everything just come like it's more, they're just like second nature now, I guess. Like you start to really know them, and it was really fun to with the little moths that fly around paths and have like little quips and stuff. Well, in the second book, there's a pirate with named Fleabeard, and he has little fleas, and so now like the moths and the fleas kind of have this little dialogue going, which is was really fun to write.
Watch out for wormholes, because a good book is a wormhole, whether it's paper or pixels. Explore our artist books and chapbooks, including the winning 2022 Chautauqua Janus Prize Lecture at januspointpress.com. And sign up for news of our upcoming sci-fi, sensual, and literary collection, Event Horizon. This short story collection on cosmic decisions and their impact is written by award-winning author Stephanie Nina Pizzarillos and features comics, prose, photography, and original canvas work by an array of exciting artists. Visit januspointpress.com. Like some of your other books kind of have more of a crayon feel to it, like crayon colored feel to it.
Yeah. Well, so Kung Pao Chicken and this little piggy, and then my picture book,
Right,
Gilly's Monster Trap. Those were
right.
all done with watercolor and ink, and then the this little piggy was watercolor ink and a bit of colored pencil. And then
Okay,
when we were doing Sloth Sleuth, they asked me if I would be willing to do it digitally, which I
right.
hadn't done before. so
Okay, I was
so I
gonna
was
say
like,
because it has a
sure, yeah,
different.
I can
Yeah.
I can figure that out. You know, so So yeah, so I did some quick tutorials on Clip Studio Paint. I'd learned some Photoshop and Illustrator. I took graphic design, like,
Right.
back in another lifetime, and felt like I could kind of figure some things out. It was like, that was like, I think 20 years ago. I had
Right.
taken that. So, but I figured I could figure out how to do it. So I'm still learning.
Right.
There's so much to learning how to use those programs. But I Clip Studio Paint is fantastic, and it's really really made for like graphic novels, comics, manga, even animation, and
Wow.
it's much easier, I find, to work with, than Photoshop for those things.
So as you were mentioning before as well, is like when it comes to putting these books together, as you say, you kind of have like a character or like a character idea first, and then do you script it out? Do you sketch it out? Where do you go from the creation of an idea to script and illustration and things like that for a children's book?
Sometimes if things are under deadline, you just have to kind of dive in, and usually there's like a specific order of things. If you're working with an editor, so with it,
Right.
it'll be like outline, manuscript, sketches, that kind of thing. But if I'm working on something that's I'm just sort of developing and getting ready for my agent to send out, once I have that concept, I kind of let it percolate a little bit, and whenever I think of something, I'll write down notes. So I just kind of like get notes on things. And if it's say something like sloth or like chickens, I'll do some research. Right, I just kind of look them up, because a lot of times like the um, like little fun facts about these animals will give you great ideas for their personality, and like just little details that you can do to make the story richer and the character funnier, or things like that. And then once I kind of have like the basics of a plot in my head, like think, okay, well, I kind of want this and this and this to happen. Then I'll do usually I'll start with an outline. I didn't used to, but I've learned that it's a lot more streamlined, and it's a lot easier to edit your outline than it is to edit a manuscript, right? So
Okay.
so now I'll start with an outline and just kind of um, I think I've got to the point where, depending on like the age group, I'm like, okay, well, about this many chapters. So then I'll kind of go through and say, okay, like this is kind of, I'll pace the book out by how many chapters I think it'll have, or about that many.
Mm.
And then I just kind of like just keep fleshing it out and filling it in from there. And then once the outline looks good, then I'll go to the manuscript. And um, if it's a proposal, we don't often write the whole manuscript. We might write the first like 3 chapters, and then
Mm.
I'll do the 3 chapters in art. And then, so if I'm sending a proposal out to an editor, I'll have like a full outline plus synopses for future books if it's a series. And like I'll have like character sketches, and just sort of like um, make it like a really nice package, and just try to put in as much information as I can. And then I provide like sample art, and like sample, like I said, like a like first three or four chapters of a manuscript. So that's what would go out if I was shopping to an editor. But if I'm already working with the editor, then it's the order is a little bit different, or
Right.
sometimes it just depends on how they're used to working, or sometimes we kind of go back and forth with, you know, my process compared with their process, and just kind of work out what we want to how we want to do it.
How is your process different, say, from your first couple books to your latest book?
Well, it's it's funny, because like I guess like the first books that I did that were published, um it was like suddenly I had a 4-book deal, and I hadn't even I hadn't written them. It's like, and and I hadn't done it before, and I was really scared. I was like, what if I can't do it? Like, I'll never get another chance. Like, if I can't do what I've promised, right? And you
Right.
feel a little bit like you're, like they're gonna find out that you don't know what you're doing. But um, my Kung Pao Chicken editor is amazing, and I think she knew when she offered that I was a brand new author, and so she was really great about walking me through the process of being a first time author. So yeah,
Mm.
she's amazing. So that was I was really lucky to have her.
And so what did you learn from doing, say, like Kung Pao Chicken that you were able to utilize for like your Sloth
Well,
Sleuth?
honestly, I think Kung Pao Chicken sort of it made me learn how to draw really, really fast because I had to do four of them in a year. Because
Oh, is that what it was? Okay, yeah.
yeah, four of them came out. So I think it probably took about 18 months for me to do all four of them, but they all came out in the same calendar year. So it was a really, really tight schedule. And
Right.
after that, so I was able to draw really quickly, but I also, for a while there, I felt like it had sort of ruined my ability to slow down and draw like something, like more some of the things that I had been doing before that were more like, say, picture book art, that was more where you want to spend a long time and do lots of like effects and details and stuff. I I almost couldn't do that for a while because I had gotten so like, I have to get it done, I have to get it done. So it was just really trying to get it just as quickly as I could because we just had to make the deadlines. And so
Right.
I think I've kind of got like a good happy medium now, though.
And so how do you determine also is like what age level your books are going to be? Is that something that you try to aim towards, or is that something like the editor determines on your behalf?
Sometimes a bit of both. Sometimes
Mm.
I'll write something and I'll have like an age in mind for the character, or and sometimes either my agent, if I've sent it to her first, or the editor will say we need to, just like either bring it down a little bit or age it up a little bit or something like that. Actually, in the first Kung Pao Chicken, or when I actually had sent to the editor, was Kung Pao Chicken was an adult, so he was he was a door to door beak wax salesman, and he was living and he was living with his mom and his nephew, and um, otherwise it was pretty similar, but they had said that for that line. They were trying to keep the protagonists all children, so she asked if I could rewrite it with him as a child, um, and I thought it worked really well. So
Mm.
yeah.
It's so Cindy, if those that are might be listening or watching this who are thinking about getting into children's books, what would be your best advice for them?
I would read um, as many books as you can in the age group that you want to write for, but ones that have
Mm.
come out within the last 5 years, maybe even 10 years at the most. But a lot of people, like, they think of the things that they read when they were kids, and they're just, publishing has changed a lot since then, right? So you're
Mm.
not going to get a really good understanding of what editors are looking for, what publishers are looking for, even what children want to read if you're only reading books that came out, 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Right.
Not to say that they're not still wonderful books, but it's just not going to give you a good idea of what is currently being published, right? So,
Right.
so yeah, so I would read as much as you can, and I would, if you're an artist, keep drawing until you're confident that your style or your work is of good quality. Like when I first started, when I was working towards publication, when that was my goal, right? When I had said, okay, this is what I want to do now, and I worked a lot on craft. I read books written about writing for kids. I read there weren't a lot of art books, right?
Right.
for drawing for children's books. But the ones that were out there, I read those, and I like did a lot of like online courses and things like that, just trying to learn as much as I could. And I joined a writing community where I could learn from others who knew more than me. And then as I started to know more, then I tried to pass that on to others as well. But I didn't send anything out for 4 years because I thought I can look at what I'm doing now, and I know that it's not as good yet as what I'm seeing published. So, and not everybody does it that way. Some people prefer to start sending it out because they know that they can. A lot of times you'll get feedback offered, right? But
Right.
um, but I didn't I didn't think that I could handle a lot of rejections. Like I didn't want to get discouraged. And because people are like, oh yeah, you'll hear no 200 times. I'm like, I don't want to hear no.
And so Cyndi, if people want to kind of like learn more about your work or kind of follow your work, where is the best place they could go to?
Oh, well, right now I think I am only on Instagram. I'm kind of waiting until the dust settles with what's been happening with the different social media platforms. I was on Facebook for a while, and I was on Twitter before, and
Right.
um, um, and I think when at one point I had like 5 books due all at once, and I just needed to I needed to not have those kinds of distractions or feel like it was an obligation to be on there. But I know a lot of people have left those platforms, and are there's a few new ones that are kind of up and coming. But I've just going to give it a little bit and see whether it's Threads or Blue Sky or whatever. But right now I'm still on Instagram, so if there's anything that's new and upcoming, then I'll share it there for sure.
And you also have a pretty active, like a very well done website as well that people could check out.
Yeah, and I try to update it as often as I can when new things come out. So I don't think there's anything that's out of date right now. It has all my books, and I do have a couple more books that are set to come out in 2025. And once we have covers for those, then I'll add them as well. You can see the deal postings on Instagram though. So I have another picture book coming out in 2025 that's with the same publisher that did my first one, the Gillies Monster
Okay.
Trap. So, and it's called Monster Up. And it actually
Okay.
is about monsters this time. so
Oh, cool. Okay.
so yeah, there's like a couple of little monsters, and they're kind of facing their fears together. And
Okay.
yeah, but again, it's kind of funny, a little, my humor always leans towards either a little dark or a little ridiculous, but always fun. So it'll be another uh, funny picture book. And then I have
Nice.
another graphic novel series that's the first one will be out in 2025, and it's called The Elephant in the Room. And it's
Okay.
yeah, and it's like about like a young girl. She's 7, and suddenly there's this elephant that she's been seeing everywhere, and she realizes when she polls her family and stuff, nobody else can see him. So she decides that he must be imaginary, and so then he kind of helps her navigate this world that she's found herself in, where she's suddenly in a class that her friends aren't in, and her family has, there's like, she's got an older sister and 2 baby brothers, and everybody's busy. Her mom's a writer and she's got deadlines, and the dad is busy with the house chores and the babies, and her older sister is goth and has no time for her anymore, and she's just, and she's a little bit like I was with as a kid with, I was always like in my own head a lot, and
Yeah.
and also things like, I think, taking things wrong, and misreading situations and stuff like that. So she's got Mr. Elephant now to kind of help her through those things. So, but
That's
it'll
good.
it'll be very, very funny, but probably also like a little, I guess, a little more of like my actual like heart into it, I guess.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there'll be some things that I'm hoping that other kids will relate to, right? Because it really, I really did add like a lot of the things that I struggled with as a kid,
Right.
and had Mabel sort of act them out for me. Her name's Mabel Bacon.
And this seems to be like kind of like a story you've been almost, it sounds like a passion project for you as well, then, in a
Um,
way.
well, I think it turned out that way. I think when I first conceived of it, it was, I thought it would be really funny to write a story like that. Like I'd loved, Drop Dead Fred, which was
Hmm.
interesting, and I love Calvin and Hobbes, and so it was kind of inspired by those things. But the more I wrote about Mabel, the more she became like me, I guess. So it started out as just something funny, but became like I guess like a little more personal as I really like added layers to it.
Cyndi, this has been a genuine pleasure being able to chat with you. This has been so fun.
Yeah, it's been really fun for me too. So,
Yeah, yeah. When Elephant in the Room comes out, you should come back on the show and we can talk
oh, for
about
sure,
it.
I will. Yeah, it's due. I believe it's due summer of 2025. So the first one is called Mabel Makes parentheses Up a Friend, and then
Okay.
and then the second book will be out in 2026, and I'm hoping that there will be more to follow that as well.
Well, thank you so much, Cyndi.
Oh, well, thank you. Really, really excited to be here, and yeah, it's fun.
It's true,
Yeah.
right? See,
Sure.
yeah, yeah. See, I, here at our local library. So at our local library, I picked up my daughter picked up your book, the super. Now I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna
Awesome.
edit this. See, I know it's right here, and here it is. Sloth Sleuth. Okay,
Yeah, I know it's hard to say.
I'm gonna timestamp this. I'm gonna timestamp it, and then I'll edit it out, and it's gonna be so smooth.
Okay.
And people are like, "Look at that! Barney's asking all the great questions. See, look at it, so smooth."